Became a DJ by accident. We'll get into that. So I was sending demos for like a year, and I kept getting denied, and I found out the address. So I just went there. No, man, I waited here for 5 hours. You're gonna give me 5 minutes, and you're either gonna find a champion without looking, or I'll never bother you again. And he's like, all right. So he puts his bag down. We go in the room. He pops the CD in. You have like 10 seconds to make an impression. You're gonna know right off the bat, is this a doucher? Is this person cool? Yeah. Are they smart?
What would you say to someone, right, who has a dream and they want to manifest that, and yet they feel a bit beaten down, or they feel like, well, this didn't go right in my life, or I don't know if I can, or I'm too old, or I'm not enough?
If you said all those things, I'd say you're worrying about the wrong stuff. Talking to a guy who was like sexually abused for years, and at one point I was homeless and we were broke, and my dad was an alcoholic. I watched him almost kill my mom, and then he left us. My mom was a single mother raising me and my sister. I was bullied all the time. I was lonely, like, you know, I didn't fit in.
Oldish, the show where age-old questions meet new-age answers. With your hosts, Randy Spelling, Brian Austin Green, and Sharna Burgess.
Clinton Sparks, welcome to Oldish. You're here.
All right.
Dude,
I'm here. Okay,
Thank you so much. I said this outside before. So I reached out to you last minute because it was kind of like, okay, we have a space, and Randy lives in Portland. Mm-hmm. So he comes down here, and we try and, each month, we try and knock out like 4 episodes and kind of cover it for the month. And we realized like, we have space for one more. And then I'd been pitching, we'd been talking about you before. We were talking about maybe bringing you in a couple months. I was like, fuck, let's just Hail Mary this, and I'll just text him, and we'll see if it works. And you immediately responded. Immediately you were like, done. I'm in. What time do you need me there? You were traveling. You were like, oh well, you guys are, in North Hollywood, so I'll fly into Burbank so I can make sure and be there in time. So impressive. So honestly, so impressive, because a lot of people don't carry themselves that way. I always say to people that it's easy to say all the things that you want to be and what you want to do, but to do them that's the hard part. That's the work. And a lot of people say it, but they don't do it. The actions don't match the words. Mm-hmm. Whereas you, for as long as I've known you, you completely step up. You are 1,000% action. You're not just words, but the words you say are amazing.
Thank you. Man.
Dude, thank you for being here.
Right? Forget the 75 million over records that you have sold, all the like entrepreneurial things that you've done. But, it's like.
My wife said that's one of the things that impressed her the most about me. She's like, when you say you're going to do something, you do it.
You do it.
So, like, for instance, her example is, if he says, I want to build an office in the backyard, there's excavators and bulldozers the next day doing it. Life's too short, man. If I'm going to do shit, you just get it done and just do it right then. If I think of something, I got to text right now. I don't say I'll get back to them later. When you text me, I'm like, let me respond to that later. Or let's just get it out of the way with.
It drives me crazy. I always
like to know I was an afterthought, by the way, for this.
You were not. We've been talking about you for months, actually.
Yes, months.
Yeah.
We had all the guests.
We had the space, and it was like,
season,
God, I wonder if it's last minute, but I wonder if he'll be able to make it in now instead of, because we were talking like a couple months. Like, we're trying to figure out lineup with him being in town and the whole thing.
Yeah.
So speaking of doing, I wanted to talk about this because I think a lot of people don't feel enough, or they don't feel that they're capable, or they don't feel that they were loved in a certain way. And we all have dreams, right? And we have big dreams. You are someone, though, that went through all of those things with your upbringing and were able to execute your dreams, I'm sure, and beyond. How did you go from your upbringing to sitting in an office for 5 hours waiting for someone to give you a chance to hand them your mixtape?
somebody did some research on my career.
Randy
right?
does his research, that's for sure. Yeah.
Like, you pulled that story out of like.
But it's an amazing story. I read it too, and I was like, wow, that is the
impressive.
dedication for.
I
Like,
didn't even know that story was like out in the world.
I'm just gonna sit here and wait, and then if I only get 5 minutes, I'm gonna sell the shit out of myself for 5 minutes. That's incredible.
Well, I've honestly made my career doing that. That wasn't a one-time thing. I did that a lot in my career. Like coming up, we didn't have social media, right?
Yeah.
So if you needed to meet someone, you had to figure out where they were, when they're going to be there, how you're going to get there, how you're going to get to them. So that's when the story you're bringing up that's how I started kind of my radio career.
Yeah.
And I was I'm from Boston. So I was trying to be a rapper and a producer and not really even a DJ at that point. I became a DJ by accident. We'll get into that.
Okay.
But so I befriended the DJs at the local radio station and the big station. I'd hang out there all the time and I'd learn how radio works and how the business of it works. And I became the funny guy on the morning show. I'd write all the skits. My name was Stun Stud Clinton. So like I'm the guy that like I'd knock on people's doors the morning before Halloween and say, I'm working tomorrow night. I'm not going to be able to trick or treat. Do you think you could give me the candy now? Like,
That's amazing.
Like I would come up with all these kind of funny skits. And then so the DJ who was my friend, I would make him mixes and get him drops from famous rappers to try to add value to him and make his show better. The hidden agenda was the closer we are, the more I do for him, he'll play my shit, right?
Yeah.
So then people kept saying, when are you going to DJ on that radio station? And then the program director, who's the boss of a radio station, was like, why don't you spin on our station? I was like, I did it. I made it. And that DJ was a hater and blocked me from getting on there. We're all familiar with these guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then I listened on Sunday night and I was like, that's not you mixing. Who's doing that mixing? He's like, oh, it's this company called Super Radio. They do syndicated mixes. So I'm like, what is that? Right? So I figured that out. And then I found out, oh my God, they're in Massachusetts. So I was sending demos for like a year and I kept getting denied. And I found out the address. So I just went there and I said, hey.
Wait, how old were you at this point?
I don't know. Maybe 20.
Okay.
Right. And then, somewhere in there, 21, 22. So then I went there and I sat in the lobby and I waited for the guy that was in charge. And they said, yeah, give him some time. He'll come talk to you. He must have forgot that I was there because I sat there for the entire afternoon until it was closing. And he came out of his office and was leaving and said, all right, see you later. And must have recognized me out of the corner of his eye and was like, it's like, this fucking kid, right?
Wow.
So he's like, hey, man, I really got to go, man. If you just leave your CD. I was like, no, man. I waited here for 5 hours. You're going to give me 5 minutes and you're either going to find a champion without looking or I'll never bother you again. If you leave right now, I'm going to continually hound you and it's going to be a nuisance. And he's like, all right. So he puts his bag down. We go in the room. He pops the CD in for those people that are watching this that don't know what CDs are. The little round.
Right.
Right. Zeros and
by the
ones
way,
on.
why are
It's a
they
long
still
story.
trying to slang CDs on Hollywood Boulevard? Who the fuck do you
I
play
know.
them?
I've seen that.
I
So,
get
dude, I'd buy it and
CDs
support you if I could
I get
actually
CDs
listen
and
to it.
DVDs all the time, and it's like, what do you? I don't even have a
right.
fucking CD player in my laptop. Like, I have no place to play this.
So I do have CDJs actually now that I say
you?
that out loud. Yeah. But so I go in there in the office and I play it and like, when someone's turned away but you can see their cheek come up from a smile? So like I see that he's like, and that means this is dope.
He's feeling it.
So he gets rid of a smile, turns around and goes, this is you? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, if you skip, you can hear some other stuff I did. And I knew at that point, just like in life, you have like 10 seconds to make an impression. You're going to know right off the bat, is this a doucher? Is this person cool?
Yeah.
Are they smart? Are they what? So like I did the same thing with my music and DJing, right? So it's like I knew right off the bat, I'm not going to play a record. You got to wait till I do a cool scratch or a blend, right? I got to open it up with something dope. So I did that, and then he went on to different songs, and then he said, yeah, this is really good, man. It's really good. You did all this stuff. Wow. And he goes, let me take it to the team, this and that, and I'll get back to you. So I already knew I had him, right? Now, I don't know what his follow-up game is, but I knew I had him in the moment.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting a call from John Garabedian. If you ever heard of that name, he's a legend in radio. He owned Super Radio. So he calls me the next day himself. And I don't even know this guy. And he goes, yeah, I'm John Garabedian. I own this. He goes, love your work. Can you start like ASAP? And I'm like, what? And he goes, and I'll tell you something else. We don't pay our DJs, but we want to pay you. I was like,
Wow.
right?
What,
So
what was how? What do you mean? They
because
don't
I'm
pay the-
fucking dope.
Yes, you are. But like, wow, that's amazing.
Well, I mean, it was that. I mean, honestly, like, if you find dope, you're not going to let it get away,
Right.
right? So he
Yeah.
must have looked at it like, wow, this dude is really good, and probably called around and like, even then I was giving game and value to people. So my name is always good because I always do good. So if you go do research on me, you're never going to get bad feedback or I don't know
Right.
about that guy or he's shady. You'll always get, that's my brother, or
Yeah.
hell yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
Because that's the reputation I cared about building.
Right.
Because you add value. That is so important
Yes.
to
Yeah.
you, right? Is adding value anywhere you go.
Right. And for anybody. Like even just this weekend, I was at the celebrity poker tournament, and 2 different people at 2 different times came up to me and was like, man, you probably don't remember me, but a few years back, I hit you and you were nice enough to respond and you were giving me information and you helped me figure some things out. Now I'm a sports agent and here's all the major artists' talent that I represent. He's like, anything I can ever do. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times people that get into power positions that and then come tell me something I did for them and I don't even remember doing it.
Yeah.
That like now they're like, what can I do for you? And I was like,
It's the
well,
greatest.
I'm actually building this company. So it always ends up working out.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
the
yeah, so to
greatest.
the end of that story, I ended up getting that job, and I was the first DJ to get. My first radio show was a syndicated show around the country. Yeah.
Amazing. So what would you say to someone, right, who has a dream and they want to manifest that, and yet they feel a bit beaten down, or they feel like, well, this didn't go right in my life, or I don't know if I can, or I'm too old, or I'm not enough. What do you say to someone?
I would
like
say
that?
you're worrying. If you said all those things, I'd say you're worrying about the wrong stuff. Something that happened to you when you're old. What does that have to do with now? Like, I mean, look, talking to a guy who was like sexually abused for years, and at one point I was homeless, and we were broke, and my dad was an alcoholic. I watched him almost kill my mom, and then he left us. My mom was a single mother, raising me and my sister. I was bullied all the time. I was lonely, like, I didn't fit in. You know what I mean? Like, I was always too like white for the black guys and too black for the white guys. So like I just didn't really fit in any kind of box. So yeah, I mean, I've been through a lot, but I don't say that in a way like I had to get over it, because I didn't. I never had the mentality like things happen to me and therefore I need healing or I have to figure out how to get past this. If I broke my leg when I was 15, I'm not talking about it at 35 years old. Do you know what I'm saying? So I kind of look at it like the same way. If I was, molested for 4 years in my home, that happened then. It's not happening now unless I let it happen now, right? And like if anybody should be bothered by it, it should be the guy that did it. Why would I do that to some boy and take away his innocence? So I don't carry stuff like that around with me. Like my father leaves, like that was his course of life. You know what I mean? So I'll tell you when I figured out the first key to life is when I was young, I was a criminal, and I used to rob houses and steal cars and stuff. And my mom was sick of getting me from jail. So she sent me, and by the way, this is kind of normal for like a kid from Boston. Right? So she's like, I'm sending you your fucking father in the suburbs. I'm a city kid. I'm wearing Adidas tracksuits and gold rope chains, and like my hair's up like,
Yeah.
like Bobby Brown.
Right, yeah.
Like, so she sends me out there. First, it was a culture shock because I didn't even know like, oh, white families that have a father that owns a construction company, the mother brings the kids to like football practice,
Right.
like that. Like that
Normalcy?
was
Right.
yeah,
Normalcy,
Yeah,
right.
that was a foreign thing to me because it was all broken families and just stuff like that. So I go out there, and then I'm living with my father. My father's still an alcoholic, and then at 18, we end up having the big father-son kind of fight that a lot of fathers and sons have. And I'm like, I'm going to be a way fucking better father than you. And he's like, yeah, you'll see. Shit happens and da-da-da, whatever. Leave. And I'm like, I'm never going to fucking talk to that guy again. So then a few years go by, and I'm thinking about my dad. And I'm like, what happened to him that didn't allow him to be the man that I needed him to be when I was a kid? And when I took the time to care to find out the answer to that, I realized the horrific things that happened to him as a child, that's his story to tell. And then he gets sent to Vietnam after all that stuff. So I'm like, how could I expect him to be a good dad at 24 years old? So when I realized that, I went back to him And I said, listen, I forgive you and I'm sorry for what you went through. And then we patched up and then we became best friends. But that was like, that key to life right there was caring about other people as much or more than yourself. We go through life like, woe is me, look what happened to me. I can't do this because this thing happened. I didn't get the love that I wanted. I don't feel appreciated, da, da, da. It's like, those are all outside things that you're letting inside. Like if you just defend happy, if your life is to be happy, it's your job to defend happy, right? Not to worry about or complain about things that happen from other people's doing or even mistakes you may have made. That shit's over too. Right. You know, get over it, move on. How do you live your life now in a way that's, you know, conducive to being happy the way that you want to be happy? So early on, I realized a lot of things. One, I was exposed to everything that life had to offer at such a young age. Like all my mom's friends were like black people and Puerto Ricans and so everyone was part of my life in my neighborhood. Then I also went to Catholic schools that were majority white people, and I'm an Irish Catholic kid. And then my mother had like gays and lesbians living with us and stuff. So like I was exposed to everyone. So therefore everything I did, I considered and cared about everyone because they all mattered to me. Because I just looked at it like, oh, everyone matters the same. You know what I mean? So that's why throughout my life, I'm so culturally connected and empathetic and care about everybody, not just, you know, certain people.
I love that word. I love culture. My dad said to me a few months back, he was like, I'm probably not going to see it in my lifetime, but he said, I look forward to the point in life when people stop talking about races and instead start referring to cultures, because that's the way it is. It's, you know, we're all within the human race, but now it's like, oh yeah, where, you know, I want to learn a little bit more about your culture and what it was like at your home compared to my home. And you start realizing that we're not nearly as different. I think the word race separates people.
It feels hurtful or hard.
It's like a wall. Yeah.
It's like, wait, what? We're talking about race now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So, I mean, I'm similar to you. Like, I know your backstory and all the people you were friends with and people that you worked with. You were exposed and were a really open-minded guy, too, that I feel we're similar when it comes to just like, friends with everybody.
Yeah.
Let's just do cool shit together.
We were talking about it at school. I didn't have a clique. I didn't have like, you can't tie me to one certain group at school. I was friends with everybody, with all different, from all over the campus. So I would like during lunchtime or recess or what, I would literally just walk around and whatever group and conversation grabbed my attention, then it was like, oh, cool. I was in that for a little while, but nobody felt any hard feelings then when all of a sudden I was hanging out with the skaters during lunchtime because my goal being around anybody was to add to what was going on, what they were talking about and all of that.
Right. What do you think attributed to your open-mindedness of so many different groups of people? Like, why were you interested in being cool with everybody?
I think my moral compass has always been really high. But I think it was kind of a bit of like necessity for me. Like I wasn't a super popular kid. I wasn't the one where everyone was like, oh man, we got to be friends with Brian. Like I would be an outsider and an outcast unless I pushed myself in there and made sure that I was in company with somebody. So I quickly realized like I had so many interests. Skating, got it. I skate on weekends, but shit, sports and, or dancing or like I want to hang out with everybody because all of these things that you guys do interest me. Right. So it wasn't like, there wasn't one specific thing for me. Like, oh, I just grew up in sports and I want to be, my dad is into sports. And so like, I'm just going to hang out with the jocks and do that. I was kind of all over the place, but it helped me, as I'm sure it did with you, that sense of like, I now can be in a room full of people and I really try and listen to and speak to everyone that's in the room. I don't find the person that I most relate to and I'm just in there with them. Like I really try and view the whole room and view everything that's around me and help contribute to the overall,
Yeah. I was a kid that when I would steal from the store, I stole Mad Magazine, Word Up Magazine, Fangoria Magazine, and Circus. Like what? Heavy metal, hip hop, like gross
Fangoria,
and then comedy. Yeah. So like I was similar to you. Like I've always thought, even when I was growing up watching you on TV, I'm like, he's me. Like we're the same. Even people at school would call me David Silver.
That's so crazy.
Because
so
I was the
funny.
music guy in my school. I was the kind of like what you would call a wannabe, like in our school. So like I was him in real life at my school.
That's amazing.
Wannabe's a tough one though. Get into that a little bit because you went from that space to like you've worked with
Lady Gaga,
majority of the
Pitbull.
credible people within
Like,
the music industry and all of that. So you crossed over from that to you gained respect from everyone. I mean, we talked about it before. I see the pictures that you post and and you're not posting pictures where you're like posing with someone. You're like hanging out in a green room or a dressing room or like so how did you find that difficult to make that transition, or did you feel like you always considered yourself really good at what it is you did, and so you were just waiting for people to on the outside understand it as well? Like it wasn't, you didn't feel like you had to prove things to people, or
no. Well, let's put that aside and
Okay.
go right to the first part.
Okay.
The first part is because I don't look at people as different, right? So much like yourself, I sat at every table in the cafeteria. The jocks, the whites, the blacks, the Asians, the kids downstairs. You don't even know what they do until you see them at lunch, right? We see them once in a while in the hallway.
Yeah.
Like, you're in our school, right? but anyways, like, and I just was the same way in business. So I don't care if you were like the most gangster thug, like, rapper, or you were a pop artist, or you were the executive at the label, or whoever. To me, we're all just people. My theory in life is find dope people, make them your friends, do dope shit. Right? So like I just look for like people that are dope and that I can work with. And the ones that aren't dope, I weed them out pretty fast. Like coming up in the music business, when you're trying to convince people like that you're worthy enough to listen to or you've got some talent to people that are already on, you can tell like who's real or what people are listening to you pretty fast. I mean,
Yeah.
So it's like when you're like, here's my idea. Like when you watch the Kanye documentary, right? Some of those scenes, I was with him after that scene. And like we would actually talk because we were coming up at the same time. We would talk about like, it's crazy how no one gets how dope we are, right? And I don't mean that in an egotistical way, meaning the dope we have to offer. What we're saying is like visionary shit. We're trying to do things to help you guys understand how to evolve and grow big and amplify what you're doing. We're not just sitting here, although I wasn't, Kanye maybe a little more than me. Like, look at me, I'm super dope. It was more like, look at the dope that I have to offer that we all can benefit from.
That's a beautiful thing that you just said too, because I think sometimes people get really afraid of promoting themselves or talking themselves up, right? So you don't want to seem full of yourself, and especially Aussies, we get that, right?
Yeah.
The tall poppy syndrome.
The tall poppy.
And it's such a thing. Never talk big about yourself. But I love what you said about look at the dope that I have to offer. It takes the pressure off it being your being, and yet it is something that you get to offer. And I just wanted to point out that I love that perspective, and I think that's something that everyone could benefit from when trying to move forward with the things they're trying to build and do, create and offer to people. It's like, look what I can offer instead of look at what I am.
Right.
I
Huge
feel like
distinction.
huge distinction.
Because you're scared to put yourself out sometimes, or it's nerve-wracking, but if you're like, I have something to offer, it becomes so much easier to put yourself out there because you're looking at the bigger picture, right, of what you have to offer.
Very
And I'm
cool.
here for you, not necessarily me.
Yes.
Sure, I'll benefit from it, but really, you're gonna win if you listen to me. You know what I mean? So like that's really how I've always been. So when you understand how to do that, and have the confidence to do it, you start making people in those positions like, how many times in my life I've heard from like, whether it's the chairman of JP Morgan or it's the CEO of Def Jam Records, how many times I've heard, aren't you a DJ? After they hear me talk. Almost as if to say like, how are you this smart?
Yeah.
Because they belittle me because I'm a DJ.
Right.
Right. And I remember when that happened, when I was a host on E! News, and I remember I'm standing on the side one time, and Ted, who is the chairman of Comcast and then NBC Universal, was sitting there, and he goes, we really like having you here. I was like, yeah, I like being here. And then he said something else, and then I don't remember what I said, but I got one of those, aren't you a DJ?
Yeah.
I was like, Ted, it's one of the things I do, right? And he goes, come up to my office after the show. So I go up to his office, I just lay on the couch. I'm like, all right, Ted, what are we talking about?
Right, yeah.
And then,
What am I here for?
Yeah, and he's like, I find you fascinating. Tell me about your life and your story. So I do all that, and he's super engaged, really great guy. And then one of the problems that I've had throughout my life to the point of like, as you're saying, it's a beautiful thing. Some people are nervous about that, right? When you're really good at something, other people who have jobs and positions that you may now outshine them don't like you, right? So I've always been like an overachiever and a workaholic even at like companies I worked at. So, you know, there'll be people that will either call me a kiss ass or to the boss or whatever, because like, no, I'll give you an example. I worked at UPS, right? That was like my first real job after being a criminal, right? So I'm like, I gotta get a
Straight
real life.
and narrow. Yeah, totally.
UPS was hiring.
Yeah,
Shout
yeah,
out to
yeah.
Biz, right? So I get a job at UPS, and I was such a workaholic that when I finally went full time driving the trucks, you have to be there like 3 years loading trucks first. Then you get to move on like, yay, I'm full time, right? So I'm there, and every day I would try to beat my own record delivering packages. But if anybody knows how unions work, you work to make it longer so that your guys can get paid more.
Right.
So they don't want me to finish faster.
Right.
So after like a week, I'm like, I drove by a bunch of like the old heads, the oldish guys, right, when I was young,
Yeah.
right? And they're all sitting at like a park having lunch. And I'm like, BP, what's up, guys? They fucking throw a sandwich at me. Take a break, you asshole. Right? And I'm like, why are they mad at me? Like, I'm awesome at my
working
job.
hard.
I'm doing so good.
Yeah.
So that's the UPS example, but I diverted from what I was saying at first. Do you remember what I was saying at
The
first?
people are afraid of that quality in you.
That was
saying,
part
but
of the
I've got
UPS
something to
thing.
offer you.
Oh, the TED story.
TED, yeah.
So then I'm in the office with Ted. And so the reason I diverted to that is because when I got to E, I was like, I'm just going to be happy to do the job, and I'm not going to weigh in on my opinion. I'm just going to do the job and fly back to Boston. I used to fly out from Boston to LA twice a week to do that show on my own dime. Right? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, just because I knew I didn't know the value at first, but once I started doing it, I was like, oh yeah, I've done a lot. If we sat here and talked about everything I've done for free to get to where I am, or I paid myself.
Impressive.
And by the way, I was broke. I would make money by shoveling snow and whatever I had to do to make money to do that stuff.
Wow.
But so then he goes, after I talked to him about all these things, he goes, man, I love the way you think. Like, what do you think about the company? So, you know, Zach Morris moment, just stop everything. I'm like, do I tell him what I really think?
Right.
Or do I just say, everything's great?
Right.
Yeah.
Me being a person that can't help from helping other people do the wrong thing or be able to see an open lane for them. Well, you guys could be doing co-op advertising here. You're missing the market over here. You're not acknowledging this target audience over here. You're da-da-da-da-da-da. He was like, holy shit, where'd you go to school? I was like, the streets, Ted.
Yeah.
I went to school in the streets. And he goes, how do you know all these things? I'm like, the streets, brother. And then, so he goes, what do you think we could do? And I had no idea. I didn't even know what I was going to the office for. So I was like, well, you know, to be sick, instead of you guys running around chasing Paris Hilton and Britney Spears at clubs around Hollywood, is if you guys created your own E-branded party in Las Vegas where people would now make it a destination party, and everybody outside of Hollywood would think all the celebrities are going to be there anyways because it's E, but you can also lure celebrities to go there, get your own content that you own, that are people at your own party, and the Hard Rock can now have signage all over the place, and the Hard Rock benefits because they can promote it on the E network, and everybody wins.
Wait, was that from the top of your head?
Yeah. Right?
Right?
So, if I tell you the new television show I just came up with, me and T.I. in front of T.I. on the spot, you'd flip out too. But
Really?
anyways.
Bonus segment.
Bonus segment, yeah.
So he goes, this is amazing. How do we do this? And I was like, I don't know, man. Give me a week. I didn't know anybody in Vegas, right? But Sal Masakela did, if you remember Sal.
Yeah.
So Sal connected me with Phil, who worked at the Hard Rock. And like within a couple of weeks, we were having a steak dinner, brokering a 7-figure deal that like came to us, not like E. And then I DJ'd the biggest party in Las Vegas every Saturday night. That was an E-branded party. Then we started broadcasting the E! News show there. And then we would do it at Rehab, which was like the first pool party, like day
Yeah, I
parties that now
remember Rehab.
it's normal. But yeah, there's a lot of, to your point, what you were saying out there earlier, it's like, I'm like the Forrest Gump of hip hop. I mean, you know, you like see him like in every like monumental moment,
totally.
like in the corner.
Gotta pee.
Like
Yeah.
I've had something to do with so many cultural impacting things you wouldn't know unless you knew me. Because it's, again, I'm not online like, look what I just did.
Right,
You know? And plus,
right.
obviously, at the time I was doing it, there also wasn't social media to say, look what I just did.
So
Right.
you've done so many things. What are you excited about right now?
Can you
It's
say?
a good one.
Well, I am currently raising $50 million for I'm building the
It's more than most people make in a month. So
in a month. It's going to be the most exciting, culturally impacting entertainment empire in the world, in the fastest growing form of entertainment in the world, that I've already helped take one of the companies I was a part of to a $2 billion IPO on, and this is going to be much bigger. So that's as much as I can say about it.
Now,
I'd be excited about that too.
However, this is an evergreen show, so one day we'll look back and be like, holy shit.
Yeah, I remember
this
you
is
right.
the new
Right.
Google of
Yeah.
entertainment. I remember when he was on Oldish. Now he's actually really oldish.
Right. Right. So let's talk about XSET is the thing that you're doing.
That's what I was doing.
That's what you were doing. So you're no longer doing that.
No longer doing that. That was a esports organization. So before that, there was a bunch of popular kids online called FaZe Clan. They built a huge following. They had no business model, no revenue drivers. We went in there, and then I brought cultural, like Offset, Pitbull, Sway Lee, Yo Gotti, DJ Paul, Ray J, Big Boy, Troy Carter, all these people into that space. And then we all brought like NFL champion, Bear Brick, Beats by Dre, Jimmy Iovine. So everything that made like gaming that would, if you didn't know about gaming, you didn't know shit about how big they were, right? And so we brought all the cultural connection, which then helped it go to become a $2 billion IPO. I left that and then founded another company with a couple buddies called XSET. We built that to be the fastest growing, most diverse and inclusive esports org, because we realized there was not a lot of inclusivity and not a lot of diversity in this space. So we were like, let's change that. And then, so we went and started that. And then I ended up resigning from the company I found to do the thing that I'm doing now.
So you were talking about gaming, right? And what you did with XSET, is that what it was called?
Yep, XSET and FaZe Clan.
Explain this a little bit more, right? Because I don't game personally, and I know that I am a little bit oldish in the fact that I don't necessarily connect to that. But I know there are a ton of parents where their kids are gaming and whatever. You said once that there's so much merit in it, that it's connective. I mean, tell us the good parts of gaming, because I think we all know some of the negative effects of it, but what are the positive
What are the negative
parts?
effects you know?
Well, to be honest, I think maybe we make it. I don't know. I'm listening to you speak. I'm like, maybe we've got it all wrong.
Yeah.
But
I think the biggest negative is just device time in general, right? It's like it's that fear of like of kids having access to things, and it's like, oh my God, they're gonna easily go down the wrong path if I.
Wait, did you not play Atari or Nintendo?
I
growing
did,
up?
Of course.
but there wasn't the same.
But there's not the
connection
online
within the like
finding
in the
community
world as there
online
is
like
now.
that,
Right.
as
So,
opposed to
so because you guys don't game, I can see why you may think some of the things that you
Yeah.
think. But I'll say a couple of things. We put our kids in Pop Warner football and Little League baseball and all these things. Gaming is just as viable, but guess what? You don't have to dribble a basketball for 15 years to hopefully make it pro, right? You can make it successfully so much faster. And then to your point,
There's a pro to gaming.
oh my God,
Yeah.
what do gamers make in a year? Like some of the good
it
ones.
depends. There's different people have different things.
I've
but
heard there
Randy,
were
you
guys that have
die.
YouTube
Millions.
channels that have homes that they have just for gaming that are clearing like $50 million a month. Like it's crazy what
There's
people
so
can make.
much money and it's so
Crazy.
untapped. But also to your point, the average age of a gamer now is 34. So 48% of gamers are women, which most
Really?
people don't know.
48%.
Which most people don't know. And the thing that I find odd is that people think you don't have to be an actor to be in the business of making movies. You don't have to be an athlete to be in the sports business. You don't have to be a rapper to be in the music business. You don't have to be a gamer to be in the gaming business. So I think a lot of people are like, well, I don't game, so I don't know anything about it. Do you know business? Do you know marketing? Do you know celebrity? Do you know finance? Do you know customer service? Do you know promotions? Then you know gaming. It's the same thing. You don't have to play. Robert Kraft's not on the field playing football, but he owns the team.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
And that's what people like. When I go to Rick Ross, he's like, Sparks, my gaming days have passed me. I'm like, I'm trying to fucking make you Robert Kraft, dude. Not Julian Edelman.
Yeah.
And that's where I think people have the disconnect and not understanding. But like colleges give scholarships for it. 46% of them go unclaimed because people don't even know that that's a thing. Colleges, yeah.
Give
High schools.
scholarships.
Yeah, there's collegiate in sports, gaming and esports now. It's grown. It's the fastest growing form of entertainment in the entire world and makes more money than books, music, and movies combined.
So why is there this negative opinion of it from like our oldest generations? Like, where does that come from?
It comes from adults. right? So when we were
Just not knowing?
when we were coming up, what was the thing we heard the most? That was trash. What the fuck is that music you're listening to?
Right.
That beat bop,
Right.
biddity bop, hippie pop. Pull your pants up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What did that turn out to be?
Right. So true.
The biggest form of music in the entire world, making billionaires.
Yeah.
Right? Because parents didn't see it coming. It was the next generation that made it. While people who was oldish became old, then these people that were youngish became a little bit older, moved them out of the way, and then this is the new thing. It happens with everything, with streaming. When we went from CDs to streaming, it happens from movies. It happens in every single industry. If you pay attention to markets and you're able to forecast trends, you can see how things come back around full circle, or what the next wave's going to be, and why that industry doesn't understand it, or why this culture or that demographic doesn't understand it. What we were joking about at the beginning of this, we're oldish enough to be experienced and know things that younger people wouldn't. But I think because of the industry that we're in, and especially in hip hop, like you kind of stay young and you stay connected and tapped in to what's going on in the streets, on the internet. What are the kids saying, right? Like I don't even look at myself as the age I am. Not that I'm in denial of it, but I'm just saying I don't even think of age. Right. I just dope is dope. You know what I'm saying? So even what's great about gaming, you can be 55 or 25. This is the first generation where parents and kids listen to the same streaming services, are both watching Netflix, get their news from the same place. We all know. Back when we were young, our parents are doing some other shit. I don't know what they're watching or listening to, and they don't know what we're out here doing or wearing either.
I never thought of it like that.
Right?
Yeah.
I never thought of it. Thank you for bringing that up, that it's the first time that everyone is getting things from the same place and it's relevant.
Right, so when your kids are like, hey, Dad, did you see that thing? Yeah, I seen the same homepage on Netflix that you seen, because we watch the same streaming service.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're hip to the same things. But parents are just so limited, because most adults, without getting into like psychology, but most people have what they've learned, and that's what they learned. They don't really go past that, right? And they're stuck in that. So as they get older, they're stuck in memories, which is why nostalgic music and television shows is so important to them, because it reminds me of a better time, or things that they know, or it relates and connects to things, right? And that's why you'll get an old person that's like still on a flip phone.
Right,
How do you use this thing?
Right.
I don't understand. Why can't it just be press the numbers, right?
Which my daughters are both going to have.
But I mean, that's what happens. It just comes from the limitations, again, back to the beginning, limitations you put on yourself, on what you're willing to accept, what you're willing to listen to, what you're willing to believe, right? So I am open-minded to everything. So when I hear about this thing, even when like mumble rap started, right? And I'm sure you were familiar. You had old heads mad at that. This ain't rap. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, of course it is. It's a new version. It's a new style that you're going to get left behind if you don't fucking get familiar with this shit, right? And like inevitably, and I helped some people like get to learn it from each other, but that's what happens with people. They look at something new and they think it's going to disrupt what they're familiar with and comfortable with being a part of. It's almost a little oh no factor. What's going to happen to my comfortability if this is the new thing that I don't know and I don't want to learn and understand it?
If you look back through time, I mean, that's the way Elvis dancing on stage was like, it's the world's going to go to shit.
Beatles.
Like the way it was, everything is like, the world is ending right now. Like this is the end. And then it's just the beginning of a whole new phase.
It is. And we've lived long enough and there's so much stuff documented that we can just see. I'm baffled when people can't see or understand things, because like whether it's don't do that bad thing because this thing's going to happen to you. Oh, you want proof? Here's 100 documentaries that show everybody's fucking failures and their demise because they did the very thing that you're doing right now, right? And it's like, I don't understand. Even like cigarettes.
Right.
Hey, it says it right there. You're going to get sick if you do this, and you still do
even
it.
has pictures of it. Like
Right,
show us it.
right.
Hey, dude, you're going to get AIDS if you don't wear a condom, and you don't wear a condom.
Yeah.
What? You knew you should have wore a condom.
Yeah.
You know what
Right,
I'm saying?
yeah.
I don't understand that theory or mentality. Which is why I
Yeah.
never drank or did drugs or any of that stuff, because I just don't understand it. On top of that, when I was a kid, I was like, who's that fucking thirsty? Like I would never sit and drink 6 Coca-Colas
so
when I'm
true.
a kid.
Right.
Why would I drink a 6-pack of beer?
Yeah.
It just never made sense to me. Plus,
That's thirsty. That's fucking genius.
plus you see like, mistakes people are getting, or people getting sick, or DUIs, and like, nothing good comes out of this. There's never been a community of people that are like, thank God for beer.
Right, totally.
Right.
Look at how well we've done.
Yeah.
Right.
Dude, running
We've
around
really
being
moved the needle
promiscuous,
forward.
unprotected.
Evolved.
I'm so much stronger down here because of it.
Yeah, right.
It's like nothing of that stuff just doesn't. I know we're getting all over the place with this
That's
right
okay.
now, but it's just kind of all tentacles of what we were talking about, where it's just about being willing to listen and understand. If you want to be closer to your kids, then care about what they care about, right? Instead of fighting like, what is that stuff you're doing? You just look old. You look like you're out of touch and you don't know what you're talking about. Instead, walk in and say, what is that you're doing? Teach me about it. Tell me that. Why is that working? Why do you care about that? Why does everybody think about that? And then you start learning, understanding. So now if you're an entrepreneur, now you start thinking of how can I innovate on that? Right? Now you're like, fuck, if they all love this, if I add this thing that they don't know about, but I know from my old brain, from shit that happened 25 years ago, and I put that connected to that, I just fucking reinvented the wheel, and they don't even know where it came from. Which is why so many young kids now will come up with sayings that we were saying in the 90s, but they think
Like
they're
it's
late
new.
and they came up with it.
Right.
Yeah.
It must be so much fun to see the world as Clinton sees the world. That should be a game because it is like the epitome of improv, of yes-anding. You take something and you go, and what can we create from that? And what can be learned?
Yeah,
and
so
what can
true.
be extrapolated?
What else?
Yeah, what
else?
else?
Yeah, what's next?
You seem to just always be the path of least resistance, which is, I think, so many people have to practice that. I myself included. I'll come up to things, I'll feel the resistance. Path of least resistance, is the way. But you just have this beautiful way of going, yes, and let's move forward with it. Did you always have that, or your upbringing and being on the streets made you go, can't change it, got to do something with it, and so yes, and?
Well, you don't know you're making history while you're making it, right? And you don't know that you're getting stronger while you're getting stronger, all right? Or smarter while you're getting smarter. So I don't know when the turning point was. I never had like an aha moment where I'm like, aha, now I figured it out.
Right.
Except, the keys of life. I'm like, I just had a breakthrough of understanding people and psychology of them, right? So I've had those. But as far as like, how do I move? I mean, I guess like you learn a lot when you got to out-talk cops, when you got to out-talk bullies, when you're like, when you're getting jumped around the neighborhood, you got to outwit people. When you're the only white kid in a black school, you have to walk in with your head down, but your eyes see everyone's shoes, hair, teeth, what they're wearing, because it's going to be capping session soon, right?
Yeah.
So you got to be like, well, why don't you fix your fucking teeth? And they're and like, how did he even know that? Do you know what I mean? So I was plus also being a thief, you're very attentive of everything that's going around you. So it's a culmination of like, plus also being molested at night in my bed.
Right.
I'm always aware of like, heard the door just crack, sounds like he's coming in. You know what I mean? So it's like all these things that while they're all kind of dumping into your brain, you don't know what power or destruction they're going to cause. But as you start getting a more mature brain and you're able to think, then you're like, all right, I can use this as power or a tool or energy, or I can say, why me? Why did this happen to me? And complain and cry about it and look for answers that I'm never going to get. And that's probably I would say one of the biggest obstacles that humans deal with is the act of constantly looking for answers to questions that they'll never get answers to. Dad, why did you beat me? Mom, why did you do drugs? Why did this happen to me? You're not going to get them. So then what ends up happening is you now have this open-ended questions that won't get answers, and you just live the rest of your life feeling not fulfilled or full because you need those answers, or you think you need them to move forward and advance in life. So then you go around, then those turn into excuses of why you can't do things or why you're not doing better in life. And you always use it as a fallback, right? But if you just realize early on, not going to get the answers, cool, done, boom, now what do I do? And like, that's kind of how I operate in business and life. All right, this is a bad situation. It's not making this person happy. Like, even if I did something, which I try to be super attentive to never be the reason somebody's bothered or upset or hurt. And that's because I know what I felt when I was a kid, and I never wanted to make anybody else feel that way. But if I find out I did, then I immediately go and figure out what did I do that caused this so I don't do it again. Not make excuses on, well, you shouldn't feel that way, or I didn't mean it that way. Or
you own it.
Which is what most people do because they're trying to defend themselves so they can feel they're a better person than they are. When if they realize if they just actually did the right thing, they would actually be a better person than they are than trying to convince themselves that they're a better person. Make sense?
Yeah.
Makes sense. Accountability.
Yeah, I always say to people though, like that have trouble saying sorry, they have this feeling of like that they're admitting guilt if they apologize for something, and it's like, no, you can apologize for somebody feeling a certain way because of what you said. You didn't maliciously go in with the intent of hurting somebody's feelings, but you can still be sorry that their feelings were hurt.
Or even if you did, because you were angry at the moment, you can still admit, like, I was just being a dick. I shouldn't have did that.
Right.
And I'm sorry, and I'll work on trying not to do that again.
So how did you not move forward? Because the way your brain works is incredibly impressive. How did you not move
you need to be the Clinton Sparks spokesperson.
right. Baseball cards, my rookie card, by the way. How did you move forward in life and come to the point of, instead of making it all about you and just selfishly acting with the knowledge that you had, instead go, you know what? I want to gift this to as many people as I possibly can. And I want to include everybody in this. I don't want to be alone in this knowledge and these things that I've learned. Because not a lot of people do that. And that is one of the things that is so impressive to me. Just in watching you and watching the way you act in social media, the way you're speaking now, the way, you spoke to us off camera. It's like your head is always in that sense of like, I'm communal. I want to help everyone that's around me.
Well, the interesting part about that is it's foreign to a lot of people.
It is.
So people don't believe it, or
Right.
don't trust it, or they think there's something behind it, or they don't believe you, or they think, especially today, that there's a hidden agenda or you're a scammer, right? So, and it's funny, man, because my whole life I've been, you can look at my social media from 15 years ago, and I was doing the same thing I'm doing now, giving out game, helping people. Like, we got this wave of everyone's a life coach and a guru and a leader, thought leader. I've been doing this. But, I don't know, man. I get asked this question a lot, and I still haven't really figured it out because, there's also the risk of you feel pompous or conceited when you can see so fucking clearly. Have you guys seen Good Will Hunting?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know
Love
this,
that movie.
You know the scene, Boston, baby, get familiar.
Yeah.
You know the scene when Matt Damon's sitting across from the professor, and the professor's reading, he goes, hey, did you think about, he's like, yeah, it's in there. And he goes, well, how about, did you think? He goes, yeah, it's in that too. He goes, well, how about, he goes, you know what it's like for me to sit here and watch you guys fucking fumble around with this shit when it comes so easy to me? That's what life feels like to me. But I'll give you another example. If we can all sit here and agree that Superman is a superpower guy, right? Mm-hmm. We all know he flies, he has super strength, X-ray vision. We all collectively agree Superman is super.
Is super.
Right? But the minute Superman gets on a podium and says, I'm Superman, here's my powers, and I'm super. Now he's an asshole.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that fucking prick, he thinks he's super, he thinks he's better than us. Right? But it doesn't change the fact that he's super. It's you're the problem. You're the one that can't accept that he's super. He didn't do anything wrong. He admitted a fucking fact. He's fucking super.
Right.
And we all know that. But the minute he says it, he's an asshole. And you don't like him anymore. So it's a real fine balance of like having the answer when no one else in the room does. And like, how do you fucking make them, because people are like, oh, what, your way's better? It's not my way. It's just the way
Right.
that I figured out how to master.
Right, yeah.
And that's your problem that you haven't figured it out yet. Mm-hmm. So if you can look at my history of my win, repeat, then let's maybe, the same way you'd give Jordan the ball, because he's probably going to shoot it in the hoop, give it to the guy that's going to probably get it in the hoop.
Right.
The problem is trauma, brokenness, insecurity, jealousy, all that stuff is in the way of them being able to see that. And it's like, God forbid they let you be smarter than them.
Right.
Or you got the answers and they don't. And that's probably, without trying to, hoping I don't sound conceited,
You do
that's
not.
probably the most difficult thing I've had throughout my life, is trying to make people see the right thing that they should do for themselves, right? But then you'll get someone that looks at you like, well, what do you know? You came from this background, or we're the same age. Why would you know more than me? Or I made more money than you, so what are you going to tell me? People will find reasons to not listen to you. Even my own wife She's fucking awesome. I love her, right? But there's times that I'll try to like gently show her this is, I have a kid. I have a 20-year-old. Now me and her have a 2 and 5. My 20-year-old's a dream kid, the best son you could ever have. If you designed a son, he's that, right? And a lot of it has to do with the way that I raised him. I never yelled at him. I didn't punish him. I didn't tell him what to do. I talked with him. I put opportunities. I listened, right? And now he's a doper version of me at only 20, right? Like we'll talk and he'll say, have philosophized things to me. I'm like, wow, that's fucking genius.
Yeah.
Right? But like, I'll say to my wife, well, if you do this, here's what's going to happen, blah, blah. I say, you don't tell me I'm a good mother. I know what I'm doing. I didn't say you weren't a good mother. Right. And that's the problem with the world. They don't hear what you said. They hear what you think you mean, what they think you mean.
Right. And they hear what their insecurities are just reflected back at them.
They're looking at it through their own
I get that all
lens
the
of
time.
Insecurity. Or...
Well, when you speak to me, it's like you're speaking to me like I'm dumb. And it's like, not at all. Like,
I don't think you're dumb.
I've never said you were
genius.
dumb. I've never said you couldn't do these things. I've never said it's...
Yeah.
And it's like, all I'm suggesting is this. I'm like, you're perfect. Everything's awesome. But there's just like 1 or 2 things. If you just make an adjustment, it would make you fully perfect.
Yeah.
And I go, this thing doesn't now demise your whole awesomeness.
Right.
It's just this one thing.
Yeah.
If you change it, I have always been willing to listen. When people, since I was a kid, if somebody, whether it was good or bad, whether I agreed or I didn't agree, whether I'm like, this guy's an idiot, doesn't know what he's talking about. Guess what? I listen to everybody, including idiots. And why? Now I know how to not think like an idiot. Or
Can you write that book?
Please.
Yeah.
Totally.
Or, by the way, most people in life want to hang around with like-minded people because they want their thoughts and ideas endorsed.
Confirmation bias.
Yeah.
Right. Since I was young, I already know how I think. I already know how to sell to me, right? I've always danced in different arenas so I can understand what are these goth kids, what do they think like? What do these dudes over here think like? What do adults think like? Because now if I take it all in, going back to caring about everybody, I'm able to move through life more. Psychologically, I'm already winning every room I'm in because I get you. From your body language to how you're dressing to how you're looking at me to the things that you respond to how you ask me questions. Like, it's a skill you learn in my life. Not everyone has these abilities. We all grew up differently.
Yeah.
But because of the way I lived, I had to know, like, that guy's going to fucking try to jump me. This guy's da-da-da-da, blah, blah. So, like, instantly after 2 minutes of just being, I could walk in a room and be like, no.
Right.
You know, just
time to go.
From the way they're sitting or the way they're dressed.
Yeah.
I can tell, like, okay, that guy has a facade. He thinks he's smarter than he is, or he's going to da-da-da, or his dad was rich, so therefore he's in this room and he thinks that da-da-da, and like, but he's a fucking donkey. He doesn't know anything. He's living off this. Like, there's so many personalities, and that most people don't understand them all, which is why when people say, my wife, for instance, she'll complain about her mom and say, who does that? Who does that? Your mother does that. You know that. Why are you even asking that question? Why are you even baffled or frustrated from it? You know exactly who she is. Why do you still trouble yourself and get emotional knowing that those are the things that she does that bothers you? Learn to deal with it or don't.
Right. You talked earlier about these, like, why ask these open loop questions that don't have an answer? And that is a rhetorical question. Who does that is really more of a statement than a question.
Well, it's also revealing how unintelligent you might be to even have to ask that question. Because you know who does that.
Clinton Sparks.
Totally.
Clinton Sparks. Yeah. I could honestly talk to you for hours on end. It's so amazing. Conversation's going to continue.
The conversations, again, this is like our version of after the show. So you can go to oldish.com and you can check. We have a couple different tiers so people can watch this video and then they can get on board with this bonus content that we're about to get into right now. So thank you all for watching,
I don't
listening.
even know what camera to look at.
For being,
this one?
Look at all of them. It's fine. Ladies and gentlemen, Clinton Sparks, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sparks, thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Right on.
Hey, if you're going through something right now, if you need additional support, then please reach out to me at randyspelling.com/help or go to my Instagram at randyspelling. Thanks.